And you're on.
Hey, once again, late night from Willowdale. Um, so today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. Well, I'd rather not have to talk about it, but we're going to talk about Black Friday and holiday shopping. Uh, and I need to talk about it because it needs to be repeated. Black Friday is a psychotic, nutty American export that has affected Canada and a number of other countries in the world. But crazy consumerism on this particular weekend, just buying whatever, just lining up for hours to get into malls, to get into stores, to buy crap that you don't need, that nobody else needs, and to spend money that you don't have. And it's nutty, it's psychotic, it's frankly human depravity at its human depravity. That's what it is. It's Black Friday is a
I'd
black.
say it's depravity.
Yeah, it's depravity. It's a black eye on society. It goes to show you that it's symbolic of basically symbolic of society's decline, in my opinion. Uh, what makes it more interesting this year, particularly in Canada, but also in the U.S., particularly in Canada, is the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, that monitors countries' economic standing and growth and all that, says that Canada has record high debt levels, household debt. Canada has record high household debt, and yet millions of Canadians are participating in Black Friday, spending lots of money on crap for people that don't need it, and increasing their debt levels. And what does that do? That increases their stress levels, and which is not good for, well, it's not good for their own health. It's not good for the economy because they take sick days, and yeah, and of course it's very bad for the environment because a lot of this crap ends up in landfills, and the stuff, a lot of the electronics that are made in South Asia, and of course we know the toxic cesspools that exist in South Asia and Southeast Asia. Because of electronic, making of smartphones and what have you.
Do they have cesspools in Asia?
Yeah. Oh God, in South China, in South China, just north of Hong Kong, yeah, there are toxic cesspools of all the electronic waste. So, excess. That's a classic example of how consumerism leads to really toxic pollution. So let me get back to my point. So yes, people are Black Friday, as I said, a black eye on our society, symbolizes the nutty psychotic holiday shopping season, where people are spending money they don't have for gifts on people that don't need them, and a lot of the stuff ends up in landfill. And of course, we know a lot of gifts are overpackaged, and a lot of these plastics end up in the world's oceans. And so, yes, holiday Black Friday symbolizes the holiday shopping season, which is a total detriment to the environment. You could have all the Paris Climate Accords and all the climate change conferences you want, but if you don't address excessive consumption, if you don't address massive, rampant, stupid consumerism, none of this really matters. And no one ever talks about this because all these environmentalists love to shop, and they drive around in their Lamborghinis and their.
What should people do with their cell phones, though?
Well, yeah, you got to have a proper recycling thing with cell phones, but the problem with cell phones or smartphones is that they're so crappily built. They're so crappily built. I'm glad you asked that question, Clay, because you lead into my next segment. Smartphones. My sister bought me a smartphone, and I spilled something on it, and it died right away. Whereas if you have an old phone like this, see this phone? See this phone? Built in the 1930s. Okay? It's in all the World War II movies. Still works. Still works. I could drop that 50 times and it would still work.
Well, except when you phone Andrew.
Yeah. This phone still works. So, like, all that crap, all these, they don't even give, there's a classic example with the new one of the iPhones. You can't even get a new recharging cord for it if you lose your charging cord. because these things, they want you to buy a new phone.
Stupid people gotta pay.
Yeah, exactly. These phones are so, they want you to buy a new smartphone every year when your smartphone dies because you dropped it once or you spilled something on it. These phones are crap. I hate to say it, but they're made by slave labor in Southeast Asia and South Asia, and they're crap. This phone is made in Canada, and it's probably Northern Electric. No, Northern Electric, and the precursor to Northern Telecom, and it's a great phone. Probably made with people who made decent wages, and it's made to last. Okay, it's made to last. So I don't want to go on a tangent here about consumers, because now we're off on a bit of a tangent. But I'm glad you asked that, because yes, most electronics today are crap, and they're not made to last. They're made to die quickly, so you have to spend another $500-$600 on or $1,000 or whatever on a new phone. So yes, so consumerism. Black Friday, I'm being a little redundant here, but that's fine. So Black Friday represents the nutty holiday shopping season where people go over the top to buy crap that most people don't need, and they cause themselves massive stress, financial stress. It's a massive hit on the environment. I mean, the planet really takes a hit during the holiday shopping season. And of course, they create all this more debt, which comes back to haunt them in January and February, where they're just very depressed and miserable because they had that orgasmic sort of 2-week Christmas experience, which doesn't last very long. So, I think Black Friday is a criminal offense. I often think people could be very offended by this, but I think that in many ways, Christmas is sort of a crime against humanity because it causes so much stress, probably a lot of death, and of course at Christmas, and we did this video last year too about this, and I know a lot of people were angry, but yeah, Christmas is kind of a dangerous season. It's not about love, happiness, or all that. No, it's very stressful.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, I know. And all the movies are about love and happiness, and we all have to come together at Christmas. What a load of crap! Like, it's such a false season. And if you're not religious, it's even which I'm not. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in Virgin Marys, and I don't believe in Virgin Caesars. If I'm gonna have a Caesar, I want lots of vodka in it. So it's just a false season, and it causes a lot of stress, and probably causes a lot of death, and because people die because of the stress, and causes a lot of misery. And frankly, I wish it would be canceled. It won't be. But in many ways, I think Christmas is a crime against humanity, and it's a stupid season. It's a false season, and it's the shop, but it's not. If the shopping wasn't involved, at least where the shopping creates environmental hazards, and it of course it creates economic hazards because Canada has the OECD says Canada has some of the highest household debt in the Western world, higher than the U.S. So it's going to cause economic problems for Canada. I do believe Adbusters magazine always said, let's have a buy nothing day. Forget about Black Friday. How about a buy nothing day? Have a day where you buy nothing. That would be great. Maybe have a buy nothing week. And think about the planet. Give the planet a rest. Buy nothing. Other than, buy groceries and, if you need a beer, that's fine. The beer doesn't hurt the planet.
Just be normal.
Just be normal. Don't buy tons of clothes you don't need. Don't buy tons of electronic stuff you don't need. So anyways, I've rambled on a bit about that. I wanted to, that was good, Clee. I'm glad you mentioned that because I did want to mention old technology which still works versus the new technology which doesn't. But that brings me on to trade and technology. Donald Trump got elected a year ago because he was going to repeal all these trade agreements, and he's pretty much done that. The Trans-Pacific Partnership the U.S. pulled out of. NAFTA looks like it's on its death knell. It doesn't look like the NAFTA
It's kind of up in the air, right?
Yeah, it's up in the air, and who knows? There's a lot of interest in the U.S. want to make sure NAFTA works, and NAFTA definitely benefits the United States. Um, some people certainly did not benefit from NAFTA, or they, but a lot of people did, and NAFTA uplifted the American economy, and it was good for Canadian and Mexican economies as well. Obviously, some people were dislocated. There's no question. You can't deny that. But trade agreements are important. And Canada is smart to ask for some changes in the updated TPP. Can't even, the new acronym I can't get. But Canada needs to sign on to the new Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Canada needs to trade. And if it's not perfect, but obviously just given what I've said about slave labor in South China, in South China and in Southeast Asia, obviously Canada needs to implement some things about basic labor and working conditions.
They're kind of fucking the Australians a little bit, aren't they?
Yeah,
even if just in principle, right?
The Australians don't seem to care about working conditions and all that, and I'm surprised. And I'm surprised the Japanese aren't, because the Japanese are the major pushers for this new trade agreement. But Canada, the TPP needs Canada. They do need Canada, and then Canada has a right to push for environmental and basic workers' rights in some of these countries that don't have them. So, but we really need to work on getting in a basic agreement because Canada does need to trade, and I think NAFTA is on the way out the door. The Americans are making too many crazy demands, and Canada needs to. Canada and Mexico need to walk away from the table. Both Canada and Mexico are signatories to the new TPP, so there are opportunities for both those countries. And maybe if the United States wants to remain isolated and hurt their industries and stuff, fine. That's fine. There's nothing I can do. So that brings me to. I don't want to keep going on about Donald Trump in these videos, but. It's a year into the Trump administration, almost a year in, right? It was inaugurated in January. But nothing's been accomplished. And despite it says all jobs are coming back and all of that, nothing's coming back. Nothing's coming back to the U.S. The economy, the stock market's doing well and all of that, but the people that voted for Donald Trump, these people who live in poverty or near poverty, they're still living in poverty or near poverty. Nothing's changing their lives. It was all a fraud, and it's hard to have sympathy for them because they voted for a fraud, and they voted. They say you want to get elected.
Conviction is a dangerous game.
Yeah, you want to. In some ways, the United States was a divided country, but you appeal to people's anger, and you appeal to their fear, and that'll get you elected. It's not intellectual; it's very emotional. But yes, you appeal to their resentments, their anger that their jobs were left behind, mostly due to automation, by the way, not due to trade, mostly due to automation. And you appeal to their fear of immigrants, fear of Muslims. Fear of Japan, or fear of China, South Korea, fear of Japan, fear of Canada even. And that's how you get elected. And that's how Donald Trump got elected. He appealed to people's fears, their anger and their resentment, to their fear, and he got elected. And that's how he did it. And he got the United States at a time where a lot of people are not making ends meet and are suffering. Now, are those people any better off today? Of course not. It was all a fraud. It was like John Tory's smart track policy here in Toronto. It's a fraudulent election policy. Of course coal jobs aren't coming back. Coal is done. Coal jobs aren't coming back. And, Hillary Clinton was honest in her campaign. She said coal not coming back. Hillary Clinton ran a lackluster election campaign. It wasn't great. It was a bad campaign, but her economic speeches, I watched them, weren't bad. She talked about technology. She talked about, alternative energy. She said the old industries are gone. We got to focus on the new. She talked about things, but of course that doesn't do anything. People don't want intellectual arguments. People want to be told that that the fact they don't have jobs is because of Mexico, because of Muslims, because of Mexico, China, Japan, even Canada, and that's the reason they don't have jobs. And people want to be told the reason if they're fearful, it's because the previous administration didn't do enough to stem Muslims from coming into the country, and you know what I mean? Fear and anger, resentment, and fear. If you can stoke that up in people, you get elected. That's what Donald Trump did. And I'm kind of being inarticulate here, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Hillary Clinton didn't stir up people's fears, and she didn't stir up people's anger. She ran a very sort of intellectual campaign that just bored people. But people were angry and fearful. Donald Trump, oddly enough, he was able to resonate with a lot of working class people. And this, as someone said, this is a guy who craps in a gold-plated toilet. But working class people he sort of attracted working class people who don't crap in gold-plated toilets. And because he played to their fears and resentments and to their anger. And Hillary Clinton ran a very boring intellectual campaign, and she had a lot of baggage. Well, Donald Trump had baggage too, but for some reason, the hatred of Hillary Clinton is a whole study in itself, and the hatred of the Clintons in general. But that's a whole study in itself.
It's undeserved though.
It's totally undeserved. Totally undeserved. It's a scandal. It's the scandal industry that has enveloped the Clintons since the early 90s.
I think they're smart people, and people do not like smart people.
Yeah, they were very smart people. They don't like strong women. Bill Clinton was a very smart guy. He had obviously problems, keeping his pecker in his pants, and
so that was smart.
And Hillary was a very smart woman, and a lot of Americans don't like smart women. So a lot of misogyny out there. But yes, all the people that voted for Donald Trump aren't getting their jobs back. None of that will happen. Donald Trump's position on trade will just make the U.S. weaker. I think the advanced TPP will go through. U.S. will be isolated. If NAFTA collapses, Canada does have other options with Europe. Obviously, we have agreement with Europe, and Canada and the U.S. always need to trade because it's just the Americans need Canadian goods. But we can't leave Mexico out of it either. I'm not going to get into NAFTA. I kind of rambled on longer than I wanted to.
No, we're good. We're below 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a bit of a long video, but there's lots to talk about, but I just think that this holiday season, I'm going to wrap it up. A lot of people... Oh, I needed to get this in. A lot of people write Kathleen Wynne off provincially here in Ontario, as the Premier, but don't write her off. Mark my words, come next spring, she could still pull off an easily minority government. Patrick Brown is weak. He doesn't have any policies. He has a nutty right-wing constituency, just like Donald Trump's base. It's kind of the same people that...
Andrew Scheer, he's kind of...
Andrew Scheer, too, in his federal... But has a nutty right-wing base, so does Patrick Brown here in Ontario. Mm-hmm. And to have to be satisfied. And it'll stop him from... sorry, I can have a glass of wine here. Nice nice Portuguese bowl.
Sorry I've been interrupting a little bit, but I'm also a little drunk.
That's good. But Kathleen Wynne is like Hillary Clinton. She's tough. Now, she doesn't have the baggage of Hillary Clinton, but and she has electoral victory that Hillary didn't get. But don't write Kathleen Wynne off, okay? She updated the Ontario sex ed thing against all odds. She brought in a $15 minimum wage. It's not there yet, but it's coming. She's brought in pharmacare for young people. It should be pharmacare for all, but that might come in if she wins a second term. And she seems to stabilize the Hydra situation.
Don't forget UBI. UBI is kind of in there, right?
Yeah, she's talking about universal base income. Kathleen Wynne has taken the progressive vote away from the NDP. And of course it had, because the NDP wants to move to the right. The NDP wants to be the Conservative Party. So don't write Kathleen Wynne off. I'm not saying she's going to win next spring's election. I'm not saying that. She could get pummeled. But everyone thinks, oh, God, the Liberals are done. Kathleen Wynne is done. But don't write her off. She's tough. And she has brought in some good stuff. And there's probably a few things that I've forgotten. But Patrick Brown is a flake. And he has also a right-wing constituents that he needs to satisfy. And he's like Donald Trump's base. They're all over the place. And they're tough to satisfy. So don't write her off. And let's face it, the votes are in the cities. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against rural parts. I have nothing against rural Canada or rural Ontario. Oh my God, nothing at all. But a lot of things she's done is very progressive, and I think she has a good chance of getting a minority or majority government in the next election. Okay, so I've sort of rambled on here, starting with consumerism, but working my way to trade, because trade.
Well, what is Kathleen Wynne doing with consumerism when it comes to UBI, right? Like, I mean, in a way, it's about consumerism, right? Like, I mean, it's a bit of giving people money to spend on local economies.
That's it. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah, obviously, there's all this debate about the $15 minimum wage, but if you give people income to spend, they will spend it. Same with these stupid fraudulent tax cuts in the U.S. Donald Trump's giving tax cuts to corporations and all that. Reagan tried that with trickle down in the 80s. It didn't work. If you give tax cuts to rich people, it doesn't trickle down. You get tax cuts to low income people,
they spend it.
They spend it. They spend it on beer. They spend it on restaurants. They spend it on groceries. They spend it on clothes. It gets back into the economy pretty quick. So if you raise people's minimum wage, they spend it. And that gets into the economy really quick. So there's no debate about higher minimum wage. First of all, it's a moral thing to do. Don't expect an employer shouldn't expect somebody to work for you and not pay them a livable wage. Everyone deserves a livable wage. It's just moral and common sense. Certainly in the 21st century, Jesus, and yeah, so.
Well, poor people tend to do more local investment as opposed to taxes to the rich that go back to the rich, right?
Right, they go back, they put them in
Wall Street.
They invest it. That doesn't get into the economy right away. So, but anyways.
And they're definitely going to hire new people, right?
Yeah, so that's a good way to end this about giving and charity during this crazy, I hate us holiday time. That's what I hate about a lot of these companies or small businesses that have Christmas parties or holiday parties for their employees. They're kind of generous to the employees once a year, but they shaft them most of the year, right? And that's what makes me sick about this time of year. It's so false, and people always say, oh, you're a Christmas hater, you're weird and crazy. Well, I am weird and crazy, but there's no road to Damascus conversion for me, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not Paul on the road to Damascus. There's no conversion therapy for me. Christmas is a crazy, nutty time of year. I think it's dangerous. It hurts a lot of people. It's false. It's superficial. And I said this on a video last year, and I hate this stuff about. I think we did a video on Christmas Day, Cleve.
Yes, we did.
I hate this crap. People hugging each other and wishing each other Merry Christmas. It's all so stupid. What does that mean, right?
What does it mean, right?
What does it mean? Yeah. And I hate employers that are generous to their employees once a year. Like when employers generally shaft their employees all the time. So, I've rambled on about this, but. Remember, if you're getting involved in excessive consumerism, you're destroying the planet, and you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting your finances, and most people can't afford to do it. So, and the OECD has warned Canada you have high household debt, and and it's something that the Bank of Canada is going to deal with on Tuesday. So, anyways, like I said, let's have a buy nothing day or a buy nothing week. So that's it. That was a longer video than I ever wanted to make, but I'm sorry. But I hope you got something out of it.
Yep. You're done?
I'm done.
Okay.